Listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I have here Mr. Lion Goodman. And he is a transformational coach and healer. And we're going to get to know him today and just have a great conversation. So, Lion, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I can tell a lot about myself because I'm old and I've had a lot of experiences, but I'll try to condense it for you. the 2-minute version rather than the 2-hour dissertation. So I was raised in Colorado, and I was always weird. I was a weird kid, and I didn't fit in anywhere. And so I knew there was something wrong with me. So I began trying to find out what was wrong. And I began studying things like ESP while I was in junior high school. And then I got into physics and psychology and physiology and neurophysiology in college, and philosophy and religions. And I was really exploring everything I could get my hands on to understand what is the nature of human nature. What's the nature of me? Who am I? And that led me to a 45-year-long study of the human mind, and in particular, how to change the human mind, because I knew I needed to be changed. And so I was looking for techniques. So I took over 100 workshops and trainings, read books, studied with gurus, did shamanic practices for 20 years. So I was really exploring consciousness, exploring the universe. And what I realized is that the things that had a really big impact on me were when a deep belief of mine changed. So the example I like to use is that I was in psychotherapy as a young man, and I suddenly realized, oh, it's not my mother's fault. And that was a shift in belief. But it was also a shift in change of my perspective of who I was, what I thought was important. And so I started studying beliefs themselves. What are they? Where do they come from? How do they operate in the human mind? And how do you change them? And this was a long time ago. Today, lots of people talk about limiting beliefs, but they mostly talk about it. They don't have techniques for actually clearing them. They have ways of changing them temporarily or partially, but not clearing them completely. So I put together what I knew and created a system for clearing limiting beliefs, negative beliefs, old programming, bad programming from our parents or our culture, religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, anything that's in the way of a person's progress. I know how to clear that out of the way so they can become more their true selves and not run by these old programs.
Now, if I read correctly, you've been able to heal and change people in just one session?
Yes.
Wow.
It doesn't always happen, but it often does, because I'm working with something in the mind that is stuck. For example, a trauma. Lots of us have traumas of different kinds from our childhood. And it's not the trauma that was the problem. The trauma happened, just like you break your arm, it heals, right? It's the belief that was created when the trauma happened. So I get beaten by my father, and I come to the conclusion, I'm a terrible person. I must be, otherwise I wouldn't be beaten, right? Children are always blaming themselves rather than saying, wow, dad is really screwed up. So when we go down into the psyche, we go down into the deep subconscious mind and find that conclusion that child reached and help the child realize that's not exactly true. And so that's, in psychology, it's called memory reconsolidation. And we do it through a process of guided imagery and guided imagination. And once that happens, it's as if that trauma never happened. I mean, the trauma happened, but the conclusion didn't. The person no longer feels like they're the bad person. Life looks brighter. The world looks different. And so that's the kind of healing I do, is deep psychological shifts.
Wow. Now, I also read that you had been shot in the head a few times and survived.
True.
Do you mind talking about that experience?
No, it's one of my more famous experiences. In fact, an award-winning film was made based on my experience and my story. I was 26 years old, kind of lost. I had graduated with a degree in consciousness studies in 1975, which will tell you how old I am. Uh, and so nobody was hiring people with consciousness degrees. It's like I didn't know what to do next. And so I took some products and I started selling them on the road. And I was a traveling salesman for about a year and a half. And whenever I was traveling, I'd stop and help people whose cars had broken down. I was just kind of a nice guy helping out other travelers. And so in this particular case, I was driving from Las Vegas into LA. And in the middle of the Mojave Desert, there was a guy whose car was stopped and the hood was up, and he was kind of staring into the engine as if he could figure out what was wrong. And so I pulled over. It was about 110 degrees outside. And I said, do you need some help? He said, well, I just put $200 into this car and now it's dead and I don't know what to do. And he looked pretty upset. And so I said, well, I'm heading into LA. Do you want to ride? And he looked at me kind of funny and they said, yeah, okay. And I had this big van, a big maxi van, which was outfitted like an RV. And so he brought his stuff into my van, which was already packed with a lot of my stuff. And I started driving toward LA. And we started talking and I felt kind of weird about him. It's like he was a little strange. So I was going to put him off at the next exit, but we started smoking pot and got friendly, and he ended up traveling with me for 3 days. And I kind of was helping him. I took him under my wing. I was giving him clothes to wear because he had really ratty clothes, and I was buying him food. And then I'd start sending him on errands to gas up the car or move some stuff. And so it was just kind of like a young ward, that's there to apprentice with a master. Or I wasn't a master at the time, but that's what it felt like. Anyway, the third night out, I was in the back of the van, moving some things around because it was a very crowded van. And he was at the front of the van listening to music. And all of a sudden there was this explosion and something hit me in the head. And I looked up. I thought maybe the gas stove had exploded for some reason, but it was intact. And then I looked to my left, and there he was with his hand on the back of the car seat with a gun in his hand. And I realized he had shot me.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that was a bit surprising. So at that point, I thought he was warning me. And so I just said, it's all yours. I said, just, take it. Take the van, take the contents, leave me naked outside in the desert. I don't care. Just, but then he shot again. And I realized, he's not just warning me, he's going to kill me.
Oh my gosh.
I was 26 years old. I had studied spirituality and a lot of consciousness work. I studied death and dying. And so it wasn't a big surprise that I was about to die. It sort of made sense. Like I was kind of lost, didn't know what to do. And I thought, well, okay, this is my time, because I couldn't defend myself. I was a sitting duck basically. And so I said, well, I don't want to die with anger or with upset. If I'm going to die, I want to die with light and love. And, if I'm going to God, I want to go to God, So I kind of opened my consciousness up to the spirit world. And at the same time, I went through my past and I said, okay, if there's anybody I hurt, I want to ask for forgiveness. And if anybody hurt me, I want to forgive them. I want to leave clean, nothing left behind. And so I was doing that process. I was just going through my life and just, apologizing to people but I could also see the future at the same time. And I could see the next bullets coming into my head. And he shot again. Now the second and third bullets missed me by fractions of an inch. He was 12 feet away and his hand was propped up. So who knows? But I guess I have a hard aura. But anyway, so by this time I was now floating out of the van. I was up with this perspective, looking down at the van, kind of like a little dollhouse, going, "Oh, that's interesting." And I was filled with light and love of the God presence, and love was filling me and filling the van and filling him. It was just universal love coming through. And he shot again, and this time my head was pushed to the side and a bunch of blood was dripping out and I was back in my body. And I thought, that's weird. I'm supposed to be out of my body, but I'm back in my body. And so I'm kind of checking around to see, is there something missing? Because I'd studied anatomy and physiology and dance. And so I knew my body quite well. And I'm looking like, what's missing? If the bullet went through me, there ought to be something missing. But I felt intact. even though my head hurt like hell. And so I said, okay, well, if I'm going to die, I want to face my assassin, because I was kind of sideways to him. And so I turned and looked at him, and he freaked out. And he said, "Why aren't you dead, man? You're supposed to be dead." And I didn't have a good answer for that question. So I just said, "Here I am." And he said, "That's too weird, man. It's just like my dream this morning." And I said, "What dream?" And he said, "I dreamt I was shooting at this guy and he wouldn't die, but it wasn't you, it was somebody else in the dream." And my next thought was, who is writing this script? It's like I have found myself inside of a bad movie,
Right.
It's so weird. And he said, "I shot you 3 times, man. Why aren't you dead?" And I didn't know. And I said, well, maybe I'm not supposed to die. And he said, "Yeah, but I shot you, man. I shot you." And he's like completely adrenalated, and he's looking outside the windows to see if anybody was coming. We were in the middle of nowhere out in a reservoir. And so I realized, okay, if he's got more bullets, he could kill me. But if I can keep him talking, maybe he won't kill me. And so I just very slowly engaged, and he kept saying, "Shut up, man, shut up." But I was just trying to gentle him down, trying to quiet his nervous system down. Anyway, that began an 8-hour conversation.
Good Lord, 8 hours?
Yeah. Yeah. At one point, he said, he kind of came over and looked at my head. I was all bloody and stuff. And he said, he tried to figure out, he said, "Does it hurt?" And I thought, oh, he's expressing care. That's new. That's different.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, it hurts, but I think I'm okay." And he said, "Well, I'm going to take you to a hospital I know." And I said, "Okay, that's groovy. Please do." So he got in the front of the van. He started driving, and he drove for, I don't know, I was completely out of time, so I don't know how long it was. Maybe a half hour, maybe an hour. And I was thinking about this, going, "What is this about? What is my life? What is this? What is my life right now?" It's like I could die at any moment. And finally, he pulled over, but I knew it wasn't a hospital. There were no lights or anything like that. And he came back to me and sat down on the bedside next to where I was crouched down. I was in this really uncomfortable position, and he was the gun was kind of hanging out of his hand, and he said, I can't take you to the hospital, man. I have to kill you." And I said, "Oh, why is that?" He said, "Because if I take you to the hospital, they'll put me back in jail. I can't go back to jail, man." And I went, "Back in jail? Okay, so not only is it a crazy person with a gun, it's an ex-con with a gun."
Jeez,
So I started saying, "Well, maybe you don't have to kill me. Maybe there's another way." So that continued the conversation. I got him talking about himself and his background, and I was still in love light, so I was just having compassion for him, and he felt it. And at one point, he let me out of the van, and I stretched for the first time in many hours. And then we walked down to this pond, and he kind of pointed, and he was walking behind me with a gun. I thought, well, he could just shoot me and push me into the pond. But I felt invincible somehow. I felt like I'm in control, even though he's the one with a gun.
Hmm.
And so I washed off some of the blood off my face. I turned around and faced him, and he kind of held the gun out, and he said, "What would you do if I handed you this gun?" And I said, "I'd throw it out there into the water." And he said, "You wouldn't shoot me?" I said, "No, why? You got your life, I've got mine. Why would I shoot you?" He said, "You're not angry with me?" I said, No, I'm not." And he looked at me and he said, "Man, you are the weirdest person I've ever met." And I thought to myself, I said, "I'm probably the weirdest person you'll ever meet." So more conversation, and we figured out a way to part without putting him in jail and without me, with me getting help. And we finally parted. We shook hands, and I drove myself to the hospital, where the doctor informed me that I had been 2 bullets had grazed my skull. So,
Wow, that's incredible. Why did he want to kill you in the first place?
well, I asked that question. uh, he had grown up in poverty. His father was an alcoholic. He had gotten into drugs and drug running, and he joined the army, but then he went AWOL, and then he went back into drug selling, and then he ripped off some drug dealers, and they were after him, and so he grabbed his father's gun and some money and started driving, and then the car broke down, and he decided he was going to kill whoever stopped to help him, and I volunteered.
Like, why kill you? Why?
A way
That
to
doesn't
get
make
out
sense.
of his problem, get a new car, get some good stuff, but I was being nice to him. He kept saying that, you kept being nice to me, man. I took out the gun many times to kill you, but you kept being nice to me. And I went, oh, good. I'm glad that was nice. That's
Wow.
good. Yeah.
So, can you teach people to love unconditionally like that? Because most people would probably say, if I had a chance, I'd get the gun and I'd shoot you.
Well, I've told this story many times, and a film's been made about it. But I've also talked to men in prison, San Quentin prison. I've given this talk a number of times there. And when I tell this story, they can't believe it either. It's like, wow, you are weird. You didn't try to kill him. So the question was, can I train people? I can teach people how to clear the old beliefs that are in their way, that stand in the way between them and unconditional love, between them and God or spirit, between them and other people. It's not who we are essentially is spiritual beings having human experiences, right? And so by clearing the human conflicts and programs and traumas, that's when we emerge as who we really are. And so that's my work.
I didn't want to turn this into a therapy session for me, but um, I am a Christian and I actually used to preach. I was a preacher for about 5 years. Still do weddings, by the way. Um, even though I try to witness to people and show as much love and compassion, there's just a few people that have come in and out, or maybe still in my life, that I find it very hard to forgive them. Being a Christian and trying to be a witness and doing this podcast. My whole podcast is built around inspiring others and bringing positivity. I feel that's the one thing that is kind of held me back from being the success that I need to be.
Yeah, but nobody told you that that's. I mean, who told you that hate is a bad thing? That's a question.
Well, I mean, from the studies that I've had, we were supposed to love everyone. I can love you and not like you, but it was from what I was taught, we're supposed to love everyone.
Okay, well, maybe Jesus was able to love everyone, even the people that were nailing him to the cross. But that's a pretty high standard for us
Mhm.
human beings. So I think we need to make room for our humanness and make room for the fact that we're not perfect. We're not all Jesus. It's a good ideal to strive toward.
Mhm.
But it's an ideal that we're striving toward. It's not something we are supposed to be. And that's one of the issues I see with a lot of Christians, is that they set the standard. I'm supposed to be like Jesus, and I'm not. And therefore, there's something wrong with me. I'm a bad person. I deserve to be punished, all that stuff. That's the wrong attitude. Because when you're comparing yourself to a God or a child of God, I mean, we're all children of God, in my opinion.
Right.
And we all have flaws. I mean, I personally think Jesus had some flaws. Like, he shouldn't have been killed. He should have worked with the Sanhedrin and worked it out and avoided killing, because Buddha was around for 40 years teaching. Imagine if Jesus had been around for 40 years to teach what he knew. It would have been a different world. Christianity would be different. So I don't. The idea that Jesus was perfect was kind of programmed into early Christianity, and it probably wasn't true. He was at least part human, and so that part of him had flaws, and it made mistakes, just like we all do. So it would be a different feeling if in the church they said Jesus was striving to be like God. He was a child of God. He is our savior, but he was also part human and had human frailties, just
Mhm.
like you. I mean,
Right.
that would everybody be able to relax, like, oh, okay. Like now I don't have to beat myself up or have other people beat me up because I'm not perfect.
And another thing that I've had a problem with is letting go of the hurt, letting go of that anger. And although I've tried, I still have a hard time forgiving myself for the things that I've done.
Okay.
I want to change those things.
All right. Well, okay. You want to change the past?
Well, I mean, I know I can't change the past,
Well, what if you could?
and I definitely would.
Okay. So first of all, our memories of the past are malleable. It's been shown in psychological experiments that you can plant memories in people that are not true, that they believe are true. This is a problem in the law. You know, you get 10 witnesses of a crime and all of them have a different story because they're seeing from a different perspective through different lenses, right?
Yeah.
So the past, so our memories are altered, they can be changed. So if you saw, can you, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but think of one of the things that you haven't forgiven yourself for.
Oh, well, one of the main things is the fact that I was an alcoholic and I was not a good father.
Okay, those are significant things. Now, just try this out. I was an alcoholic and I made mistakes and I wasn't a good father, and I'm a human who's on the path to awakening. Just say that out loud, something like that.
So I was an alcoholic and I was not a good father, but I'm on a path to being a better human.
Yeah. How does that feel as opposed to beating yourself up about it?
Well, I mean, it still hasn't sunk into my head, but
It's a start.
it's a start.
So if you had been, if you were who you are now, and you went back to that person who was an alcoholic and not a good father, what would you have told him, and what would you have done for him?
I'd definitely tell him to put the bottle down because it ended up contributing to my heart attack, and I came pretty close to losing all relationship with my children. So I want to tell them, look, this is how close you came to losing it all.
So imagine an angel coming to you at that time and giving you those words, and putting their arm around you and saying, let me help you get out of this situation. This is what's going to happen if you continue on this road. This is what can happen if you shift your decision and choose a different road. Would that person that you were back then have made the right decision?
If an angel came and wrapped their arms around me at that point, yes, I would have.
Okay. How about if it was a human being?
I think it depends on the human being.
Okay. Okay. uh, so there's a 50-50 chance that you might have changed your path at that point.
Right.
Now, if you had not changed your path, then you would have had to go through your lessons, including almost losing your children, the heart attack, and becoming who you are now, right? You became who you are now as someone who's spreading the good word to lots of people and sharing your wisdom and sharing the wisdom of others. So that was the path you took. And look where you are today. You're a good man doing good things. And so the path led you here. So can you forgive the mistakes because they were part of your learning process?
Well, when you put it that way, and the way that I took the from what I learned back then to what I do now, I don't know if I would change that path.
There you go. So it's the same when people say, if you could not be shot, would you? And I go, no, I got a lot of value out of that. I don't recommend it as a path of awakening by any means, but it works for me. And you and I are similar in the sense that we have hard heads and we need to be hit hard over the head to wake up and fly right.
Yeah, to say
And
the
that
least.
and that is very human. In fact, someone asked me, if you could talk to anyone and ask any question, what would you say? And I'd say, well, I'd talk to God and I'd say, why are we so hard-headed? Why do we have to learn such hard lessons to get out of what we're doing and start doing the right thing? And so it makes us very human, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I bet some of the people in your audience will be able to relate and say, yeah, I had to learn some hard lessons the hard way in order to awaken, in order to learn, in order to move forward. So I think it's just our humanness that's the issue. It's not nothing else. We're not Jesus, we're not angels, we're humans. And we have brains that were programmed for millions of years toward instant gratification, not long-term planning, right? It's like you weren't thinking about losing your children when you were drinking. You were just thinking about getting the next drink, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
yeah. And whether you're a drug addict or a sex addict or a food addict or whatever that addiction is that you've got, the part of the brain that's operating is very primitive. It's early man, and it was looking for, how can I get what I need right now? It's not the planning part of the brain, which is the frontal lobes, which is able to see into the future, project into the future. So there's something that if we're operating from this old brain, we're going to be in that state of like me. What can I get? What can I eat? What can I shoot up? But as we grow and learn, we move into the thinking brain, which can plan and look forward and look backwards and judge ourselves. So we can take if we took the judgment off of you're a bad person for doing that, you deserve to be punished for doing that. If we just took that judgment off, then it's like, oh yeah, that's what I learned along the way. And now I got here and now there's more to learn, right? It's the judgment that's the issue. And judgment is a belief that there's good and bad, and you should punish people who are bad to make them good.
And the confliction that I have, though, with what I just said, um, I appreciate the fact that I can help others, but I also know that my boys have forgiven me, and my daughter says she's forgiven me, but I can still tell that she has some resentment towards me.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that makes me say, maybe I shouldn't have been that person, but I'm helping others to not make the same mistake. So that's where like I said, the confliction's at.
Yeah. How old's your daughter?
She's 30.
Yeah. Well, she may come around. She may come around and see you for who you are now, rather than the person that you were that hurt her. And so that's the goal: is just keep being a good man, and a good man and a good man and a better man and a better man. And she will eventually see that. And it might be on your deathbed, who knows? But at some point, she will see that and she'll be able to say, I see who you are. Right now, she's still burdened by the past experiences. And those are the beliefs she came to. She came to certain conclusions because of how you were being with her. And that's what she's hurting herself with that.
Yeah, and I don't blame her. I mean, she deserves to be upset with me.
But not forever.
I still feel like I should be punished for the things that I've done. That's the problem.
Let's talk about punishment for a minute, because punishment is an old technology that never worked very well. The idea that punishment will make a person better probably dates back at least to the Jews, maybe to the Egyptians, maybe a previous civilization, that we have a punishing God, a vengeful God. And that idea is, to my way of thinking, ridiculous. God set it up so that we could make mistakes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be making mistakes. If God had created a perfect world and a perfect universe, there'd be no mistakes and it'd be really boring. Right. But this idea that if I punish a child, they will not do that thing again, for maybe primitive societies where people were dumb, maybe that worked. Like, you hit a dog when they poo in the on the carpet and it says, okay, I don't want to do that again. But we're not dogs, we're human beings. And we learn from being cared for and loved into a new form. We don't grow from punishment. We just get resentful. I have talked to men in prison. They're the ones who've decided to become better didn't decide to become better because they are being punished. They decided to become better because they saw a better way. They were educated into seeing a better way. So if we're kind to ourselves and not punish ourselves, if we're kind to others and not punish them, we'll create a much better world. Punishment just doesn't work for human beings as a way of learning. There's much better ways of learning.
I don't mean to be argumentative.
Please be argumentative.
When I was a kid, I'd talk back to my grandfather, and my grandfather got out a paddle and he whooped my butt. And even till the day he died, I never talked back to him again. So
okay, but did you respect him?
Oh, I've always respected my grandpa.
Okay, so you learned a lesson. But did he then let it go? Did he let go of your having been talked back to him?
Yeah, once I got my whooping, I got my crying over with, and it was all over and done, and it was never even brought up again.
So there's something about punishment. You smack the dog and go, don't poo on the carpet, and it goes, okay, I won't. It's like sometimes we need that kind of punishment, but it's really more feedback. It's like, don't do that. Okay, I won't do that. So it's not the punishment that does it. It's the recognition that I've done something I shouldn't be doing. So I think we're onto something here, that there's a difference between the kind of punishment where you get whooped and you don't talk back again, and the punishment where you put somebody in prison for 20 years because they stole a loaf of bread or took drugs or had whatever. So it's a good conversation. It's a conversation that people need to have and say, what kind of society do we want to live in? And how do we treat ourselves and each other?
Well, it gives me something to think about, but I don't know. I've always been that if you've done the crime, you need to do the time kind of person.
Old technology. Just think of it as an old technology. It's like the early cars. You don't see people driving around early cars unless they are all fixed up and they're a classic, right? The early engines got improved, and we're now driving modern cars, and now pretty soon electric cars. So technology improves over time, and punishment is an old technology. And so let's just find out what's more modern and what's a better technology for accomplishing what we want to accomplish. I mean, interestingly, the first penitentiaries that were created in the United States were created by Catholics who created these rooms with solid walls, except a circle of light in the ceiling. And they wanted people to be penitent. They wanted them to be remorseful and recognize that they've done something wrong. And so penitentiary comes from that word penitent. It's like, I'm sorry, I recognize I've done something wrong. I've done the time, and now I'm a better person. Okay, well, let's get you reintegrated into the society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm all for that, but I don't know. We get into an hour-long conversation on the subject.
What else would you like to talk about? There's so many topics we could cover.
Well, I want to talk about the work that you do and the people that you help. Has there been someone that you've helped that case has just stood out amongst all the others, or are they kind of all almost blend together?
When I work with people who have had highly complex and severe trauma,
Mm-hmm.
those stick out for me because I can see the condition they're in when I start with them, and I can see their progress as they shift. I worked with one woman who had been really horrible stories, pimped out by her father to other men to as a sex object when she was 3, 4, and 5 years old.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
that kind of repeated trauma, horror after horror after horror. And she was in a condition as a mature woman that she could barely leave the house.
Mm.
She was so traumatized and so folded in on herself. And I worked with her for 2 years. And 2 years later, she was out in the world creating a business.
Oh, wow.
So that's the kind of dramatic shift that can happen with this work. For most people that I work with, they just had some normal childhood traumas. I'll give you an example. I was working with a multimillionaire who was complaining that he kept making millions and then losing millions and making millions and losing millions. He didn't know why. And so he came to me and said, why? So, well, let's go look in your memory system. Let's go look in your subconscious mind. And I took him back in time to the earliest memory he had of money. And he remembered walking on the street with his mother in New York, holding her hand and seeing a shiny penny on the ground. He was about 3 years old. And he reached down to pick up the penny, and his mother said, "Touch that, it's dirty." Boom. So there's a shock trauma associated with money, associated with a belief money is dirty. And he suddenly realized that the reason he kept losing the millions he had was because money was dirty and he shouldn't touch it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the sort of work I do. It's like finding that moment when the belief was formed and then clearing it and having the person just shift their whole relationship to whatever that topic is. Sometimes it's relationship, sometimes it's finance, sometimes it's love, sometimes it's work, career, health, body. It could be any topic, but everybody's got something that's holding them back. And so my work is to find out what it is that's holding them back and get it out of the way.
That's the one thing that I've worried about lately is what is that one thing that's holding me back from being successful? I try not to let anything get in the way, but something is holding me back and I can't pinpoint what it is.
Would you like me to take you through a process, maybe find out?
Hey, let's give it a shot.
Okay, good. So close your eyes.
Okay.
Most of our processes are eyes closed processes. And I'd like you to feel that sense that there's something in my way, that I can't be successful.
So,
And really feel what it feels like in your body. Describe the body sensations that are associated with that feeling.
I would say it's like the pressure of rocks or something up against me.
Good. And just keep feeling the rocks against your chest. And I'll ask some more questions about it. So if you were going to put all those rocks on a weight scale, how much would it weigh?
Probably a ton.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever you get as an answer is the answer. And what's the color that you see in the rocks?
I see browns.
Okay. And are they moving at all? Is the sensation moving or shifting, or is it just solid pressure?
Just solid pressure.
And if you were going to measure the temperature of this pressure, what would the temperature be? Is it warmer or cooler than body temperature?
It'd be colder.
Colder? Okay, so just feel that ton of brown rocks on your chest and let it be there. Give it room to be there. This is one of the keys to this process, is feeling what you're feeling and allowing the feeling, even if it's a bad feeling. And take a few breaths. And keep feeling it. And now what I'd like you to do is to spiral back in time. Remember earlier times when you felt this way. Go back and back. It's sort of like a stone skipping across water, where you go and you touch a memory, and then you go further back and you touch a memory, and further back and touch a memory, and go back as far as you can to the earliest time you remember feeling that sensation in your chest. And tell me when you get to that earliest memory.
Oh, something comes up in my mind. I just can't imagine why it would.
That's fine. This is a clue from the subconscious minds. We always listen. What does it have to say?
It was when I was in elementary school, and we had a contest, and we had to draw a picture of a book that we read.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I felt like my picture was the best. I mean, not to sound arrogant, but I was one of the better artists in the class,
Yeah.
and somebody else had won and just was not that great a picture.
Okay. So you were confident that you were the best, and you had that pride of ownership. So what I'd like you to do is to go back before somebody else won to where you created the picture and you were looking at it and admiring it and seeing how good it was. And what did that feel like?
I felt like I was on top of the world.
Yeah. Really just breathe in that feeling, feel that feeling, because that is the sense of success. You were successful at making a beautiful drawing. The contest was important. We like winning contests. And you had confidence that you were going to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now what I'd like you to do is to slowly move the movie forward, like frame by frame, to the point where you found out you weren't winning, that yours was not the best, or you were, for whatever reason, you didn't get chosen as the winner. And so tell me about that, and then freeze frame that moment and tell me about that moment.
Well, after they announced it, I was a bit of a brat about it, but the person that had won, I told him I don't understand. My picture was so much better than yours.
Mm-hmm. Good. So move the movie backwards now to the point where they announced the winner.
That's the one thing that I seem to not be able to remember.
Yeah. Okay. So imagine it. Imagine that you submitted your drawing, and at some point forward, they said, "Okay, the winner of the contest is," and who was it? What was his name?
Doug Donovan.
Doug Donovan. Okay. So and just imagine sitting there saying, "Okay, they're about to call my name because I have the best drawing. I'm for sure going to win. I'm on top of the world." And then they say, "And the winner is Doug Donovan." And what do you feel in your body?
Kind of deflated.
Yeah. Just keep feeling that. And trauma usually has confusion as part of it. So do you have a sense of confusion? It's like, wait, what happened? Why did he win?
Oh, that I did.
Yeah. And just feel the deflation, and what does it feel like to be deflated?
Uh, it's like the proverbial rug has been pulled out from underneath me.
That's right. So it's shocking, it's out of control, and it's confusing. To feel all that at once. And feel all the feelings that came up after that moment. Like, how dare they? And what do you mean he won? That was mine's much better than his. And the anger that you didn't get recognized for your good work. All of these things, and even hatred might be coming up. It's like, I hate that guy, or I hate the teacher for choosing that guy. And just let all those feelings pour in, because that's what trauma is. It's like this waterfall of feelings, emotions, thoughts, reactions, body sensations. And just see if you can sit in it for a minute. And describe what it feels like to sit in that confusion of feelings and thoughts and body feelings.
The only way to describe it is I just want to scream.
Yeah. And if you could scream, what would you scream?
I would just the most awful sound I could make out of my mouth.
And if you, that's good. So imagine screaming. So just let that little boy who just got disappointed and deflated, let him scream. Just like let the scream out. You don't know, you can do it physically or not. You can go or you can. You don't want to blow out the microphone, but just feel him screaming. And now, what is that scream saying? What is he saying with that scream?
Just trying to let it all go, get it all out at one time.
Yeah, but
He's mad.
I'm mad. So just say it in that way. I'm mad, and I'm what else?
I'm mad. I'm disappointed. I am confused.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I'm shocked.
I feel cheated.
There you go. And you were cheated out of success, out of being the chosen one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the real, so freeze frame all that, just like put it on hold for a minute. And now we're going to look for the most important thing, which is the conclusion you came to when this happened. There's something you decided in this moment. And so just search around and feel into what did you decide about yourself?
At that particular moment, I figured there's nothing I can do about it anyway. There's just something got to be wrong with me.
Bingo. Just feel that sense of there must be something wrong with me. I can't do anything about it. I'm powerless. It's an awful feeling, but if you become willing to feel it, it will be able to be digested and integrated. Are you feeling the awful feelings?
That I am.
Okay. So now freeze frame that again. And now I'd like you to come back to your normal consciousness in your body. And I'm going to ask you a question. If you, the adult, the wise adult who's learned many things throughout life, walked into that classroom and saw that little boy screaming and feeling those feelings and coming to those conclusions, what would you do for him?
Well, I put my arm around his shoulder and I explained to him, you can't win them all.
Mm-hmm. And you'd probably also tell him what a great artist he is and how really in fairness he should have won. And this is unfair, and life is unfair sometimes. And the judge gets to make the decision, whoever the judge is. And sometimes it's not it's not the right judgment, right? It's like humans make mistakes. And the teacher made a mistake. And so I'd like you to imagine doing that. Walk up to him. In fact, walk up to him, pick him up, and take him out of that school classroom. Take him to someplace really beautiful in the woods or the mountains or a lake, something like that, or the ocean. And then sit down with him. Tell me when you're there and where you are.
I'm by the river.
Good. And so begin to talk to him and say things like, I know who you are. I see you as successful. In fact, you're going to be successful in your life. And you're going to have some hard lessons too. But if you remember that you're a winner and you remember that you are successful and remember that you deserve success, life will go easier. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not your fault. Sometimes the world isn't fair. But if you remember who you are, it will all be okay. You are loved and lovable. You're a child of God. You're a perfect you. And there's lots of room to grow and change and learn. You'll have lots of lessons along the way. But you, the essential you, is perfect in God's eyes. How's he feeling? How's he responding?
Well, definitely feeling a lot better, feeling better about himself.
Mhm. And ask him what he wants to know. Tell him, I'm your big brother. I'm here for you. I'll be here for you forever, whispering in your ear, reminding you how good you are, reminding you of what's important. What do you want to know from me now?
I just want to know when am I going to be successful?
Mm-hmm. And what would you, wise man, tell him about that?
That you're gonna have your day. One day you're gonna have your day.
Mm-hmm. And let him know that the more he thinks of himself as a success rather than as a failure, the easier success will come. To remember that he is successful in God's eyes and that there's nothing wrong with him. And the more he can remember that, the easier life will be. Because even when there's hardships, which there are sometimes, he'll remember who he is. Just tell him how loved he is by you, how you know him, you know how good he is. And he's a great artist. And he tries really hard, and he's, you could tell him you knew that you had the best drawing, and that was true. And you knew you should have won, and that's true. And if I had been the judge, you would have won. And there will be many contests in life, and you win some and you lose some, but you keep going and growing and becoming better and better. So you're bringing your adult wisdom to that child who just got traumatized, and you're helping him understand something bigger than he understood at the moment. So ask him if he understands and ask him how he's feeling.
A lot more relaxed and at ease.
Good. And ask him if he wants to go float down the river with you. Get out some inner tubes or a raft.
Definitely.
Okay, good. So take a quick trip with him down the river, and then take him back home and put him to bed. Tuck him in. Tell him what a brave boy he is, good boy, and a successful boy, and a great artist. And say, I'll be here. I'll be whispering in your ear for the rest of your life, reminding you that you are already successful. Let him fall asleep with that reminder. Slowly, quietly, you leave the room. And then return your awareness to yourself, your body, where you are sitting, listening to my voice. And just feel that little boy inside your heart. He's there inside your heart, knowing that he's a success, knowing that he's good, knowing that he can handle anything that comes up, because he's got a big brother whispering in his ear, mentor, advisor, someone who loves him and knows who he is. When you're ready, you can open your eyes, come back to our audience.
They've just watched me sleep for the last 20 minutes.
No, they knew what you were up to. They knew what you were up to. So how are you feeling right now?
Feel a little more relaxed. But don't feel the burden.
That's a good thing.
I mean, I look back and I see all the stuff that I have overcome through the years. And even though there were people that made me feel less than, I mean, I've come a long way. There's times that I wanted to give up, tried to give up, but I'm still here and I'm still kicking.
and doing well. You're successful at what you're doing. You know, I read some of the comments on your podcast. It's like people love you. You know, you're doing good work.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just notice your chest. Are those rocks still there? Or are they gone?
Feels light as a feather.
Hallelujah. We did something good. This shift will continue to deepen and anchor over the next 48 hours or so. So I'd like you to just tune into him there in your heart and go play with him, go, do things with him. It's like, this is your inner child who's now been rescued from that awful thing that happened to him. And now he can be a happy, growing child. And this is why I like to say it's never too late to have a happy childhood.
Well, I haven't left the first one yet, so.
Well said. Well said.
They people say, oh, you'll enjoy your second childhood. I ain't left the first one yet. I don't want to either.
That's good. I like it.
It's funny, and I know this is not related, but one of my favorite shows as a kid was a $6 Million Man. And there was one toy I always wanted and I never got. And I actually saw it in a shop back in the Houston area where I used to live. There was that toy, and I went and I bought it. I've got it sitting on my shelf.
Good for you. That is a wonderful thing to do. Excellent. Excellent. That's great. Well, I'll tell you my quick story. So I was a long time ago, I was in psychotherapy and I was talking about my childhood. And the therapist said, you, for all the things you went through, you deserve a medal. Your inner child deserves a medal for surviving. And I heard him jump up and say, I want a trophy. And I said, okay, I'll buy you a trophy. So went on the internet, found a trophy making company and spent $40. And when it got delivered, he was the happiest kid I've ever seen inside of me. I could feel him inside of me, overjoyed that he finally got his trophy that he always wanted to win. So this is one thing we can do for our inner children, is give them what they always wanted and deserved. They deserve to be treated this way.
No, I got remarried, and we've been together 8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, it's just flown by. But I gained 2 new daughters out of the deal, and one of them, I'll show you what she did for me.
Great.
She got me a Dundee.
There you go. There you go. You got your trophy.
So
Fantastic.
I have my Dundee award. I have my trophy.
Excellent.
And I keep it right here in the center of my desk so people can see it when they come in.
Shows that you're a success. Well,
I want this to grow because there are people out there that they need help. And, I know I've been through a lot. There's people that have gone through the same or even worse than I have. And there's answers out there. And I think, people are reluctant to tell others about their problems, and they need answers. And when I get someone like you to come on, I think it reassures them that, somebody out there could help me, could get me past whatever's going on in their life. And with that in mind, do you have a website?
I do. It's liongoodman.com. That's LION, goodman.com. And I also have a website for clearing beliefs called clearyourbeliefs.com. So that's a coaching program that we have for people that I have lots of coaches around the world, and they take people through 8-part coaching programs to clear those big blocks that are in the way. So those are the 2 sites, clearyourbeliefs.com and liongoodman.com.
And what about social media?
I'm on Facebook, just with my name, and I'm on LinkedIn and all those things. I don't spend a lot of time on social media because I find that I just don't have the time and it doesn't do me much good. But I can get caught up by those instant gratification things, like, "Ooh, people like me," It's like, so I'm a normal human, and so I try to avoid things that will capture me and capture my attention for 2 hours when I could be doing something productive.
I hear you. Is there like an email or something people could send you a message to?
Sure. LionGoodman@gmail.com.
I'm gonna put those links in the description, but
Great.
you never know. Somebody could be listening to this on their radio in their car and they can't see the description. So um, I'm glad that you shared all that with us, and I appreciate your time. I know we kind of went through a little bit to get here, but we got here.
We got here. We got to the other side and the other side of the process is usually that sense of lightness of like, oh, this burden's been lifted. That thing I've been carrying for so long, it's not there. And just briefly, what we did is we reprogrammed the past. We changed the memory of what happened, and that then echoes through to the present time. And so we're changing the memory of the past, not what happened. What happened. You didn't win, but what the impact was and what the decisions were. That's what's changed, and so that's now inside of you as a living belief, as opposed to the other one that you had before. So that's part of our work. Yeah.
I appreciate that, and if there's someone out there that you need the help, reach out to Lion. If that's not your cup of tea, there's other people that we've featured on here that you can get a hold of. But find whatever works for you. What works for me may not work for you.
Indeed.
But thank you, and thank to all of you out there. If you are new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. I hope you please subscribe and please come back. For those of you who are regular to the channel, thank you for that support. It's because of you that I get to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network